A bus carrying migrant workers hit a delivery van on a highway in northern India, killing at least 17 people and injuring 18. The bus overturned after colliding with a van coming from the opposite direction on Tuesday night near Kanpur, a city 80 kilometers southwest of Lucknow, the Uttar Pradesh state capital. The migrant workers were heading to Ahmedabad, a city in western Gujarat state, to resume work following industries reopening after the lifting of lockdown restrictions. The van was transporting workers home from a biscuit manufacturing unit, and most of the dead were among them. More than 110,000 people are killed every year in road accidents across India. Meanwhile, on its COVID-19 handling, India on Tuesday recorded the lowest single-day COVID-19 infection spike of below 100,000 in over 2 months since the second wave of the epidemic broke out on April 5th. India reports less than 100,000 daily new cases after 63 days, or the lowest in 66 days. As many as 2,123 people died in the past 24 hours, also the lowest level in nearly a month and a half. Some parts of India have decided to lift the ongoing lockdown on a limited basis. New Delhi has decided not to extend the lockdown starting from Monday and allowed businesses to open half of their areas. The most populous state of the country, Uttar Pradesh, has also announced plans to allow businesses in several districts to operate for 5 days a week. Amid an acute shortage of vaccines, the country now wishes to focus on an intense vaccination drive to be carried out by the federal government from June 21st. More than 800 suspects were arrested and more than 32 tons of drugs seized, including cocaine and methamphetamines, because of ANOM, a secure messaging service built by the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. Police also seized 250 guns, 55 luxury cars, and more than $148 million in cash and cryptocurrencies. An indictment unsealed Tuesday in San Diego named 17 foreign distributors charged with racketeering conspiracy. Launched in October 2019, ANOM was taken down Monday after authorities had collected more than 27 million messages from about 12,000 devices in 45 languages, a vast body of evidence that fueled a global sting operation. Authorities on Tuesday revealed the operation known as Trojan Shield and announced that it had dealt an unprecedented blow to organized crime around the world. While primarily focused on drug trafficking and money laundering, the investigation also resulted in high-level public corruption cases. A goal of the Trojan Shield was to shake the confidence in the entire industry. Firefighters north of Sacramento, California, say dry conditions and strong winds made a fire extra dangerous on Tuesday. State Firefighting Agency California Fire reported late Tuesday that a fire in Yuba County that began on Tuesday afternoon had burned 950 acres and that it was 25% contained. The fire spreads due to the strong wind and low humidities worsened by the dry grasses, which became receptive. The fire had moved toward Bill Air Force Base and that one building was destroyed. There were no reported injuries to animals or people, but some local residents were evacuated. They could be allowed to return home once fire hotspots were put out and electrical lines were inspected. More coming up next on World News. Stay with us.
Setiap saat, berita bertabur di ruang publik. Namun hanya media Indonesia memberikan yang terbaik, mendalam, terpercaya, dan mudah diakses di mana saja dan kapan saja. Media Indonesia Cetak, mediaindonesia.com, dan e-paper Media Indonesia layak menjadi referensi Anda. Media Indonesia, referensi bangsa. Kebutuhan pada laptop yang mumpuni sangat besar di era ini. Asus memperkenalkan laptop belajar baru bagi para pelajar.
BR1100 ini kita juga sematkan fitur yang bisa membantu sesi belajar online.
Pemerintah sendiri sebenarnya sudah mempunyai program untuk mendistribusikan laptop ya.
Siapa juga sih yang prediksi bahwa situasi kayak pandemi itu akan datang?
Asik belajar, Revolutionary Way to Educate, Kamis 10 Juni jam 9 pagi. Dipersembahkan oleh
Karena corona masih ada, terus pakai masker. Jangan lupa cuci tangan pakai sabun.
Terus jaga jarak di mana saja.
Hindari juga kerumunan biar aman. Batasi kegiatan di luar rumah. Jangan kendor protokol kesehatan. Vaksin untuk Indonesia.
Tiny home building is a big business.
The architecture is modern and the landscape is very minimalist.
So, you think you're an amazing cook.
My dream is to become a professional chef.
Mau tahu resep rahasia keluarga selebriti?
Ada rasa wanginya juga.
Mau jadi koki andalan di rumah?
When I was about 20 years old, I spent several months traveling through India and we naturally would be eating Indian food. Cooking is just not a vocation, it's a calling.
Mau cari inspirasi interior?
1, 2, 3.
And if you want to live tiny,
Less house, more fun.
This is so fun.
So cute.
It's so amazing! Oh, that's so cool.
Atau ada niatan renovasi rumah?
All love to create our dream home. The dream becomes reality.
Wow. Dapetin semua inspirasinya di Mola Hour. Senin sampai Jumat, mulai jam 4 hingga jam 6 sore. Hanya di Magna Channel.
Indonesia, tayang setiap minggu jam 8:30 pagi.
Allez, allez, venez là. Un petit coup. Oula, 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 oula. Viens là. Oula, oula. Oh, oh non, ils sont cons, quoi. Oh, non, non, mais n'importe quoi. N'importe quoi. Ah, c'est une honte, oui. Oh, mais ils sont marteaux. Venez là, nous on veut pas du mal. Monsieur Macron, Monsieur Macron, Monsieur Macron. Une photo, on veut pas du mal.
The video went viral since on social media. And what does Emmanuel Macron say after getting slapped in the face by a man during a visit to a small town in southeastern France? Here is the French president denouncing the incident as laced with violence and stupidity.
Il y a de la bêtise, et quand la bêtise s'allie à la violence, elle est inacceptable. C'est autre chose, il ne faut pas la confondre. La colère, moi je l'entends, la colère, démocratiquement, elle s'exprime. Vous savez, je vais toujours au contact, à portée d'engueulade, je le dis. Et j'y tiens. Les gens m'expriment leur colère, parfois leur désarroi, je suis toujours là. Parfois j'ai la réponse, d'autres fois je ne l'ai pas, j'essaie de la bâtir. Parfois je me trompe, d'autres fois j'y arrive. Ça c'est la colère légitime, et on sera toujours là pour y répondre. La bêtise et la violence, non. Pas en démocratie.
And France is putting itself back on the menu as a destination for international tourists as of Wednesday for those who have had coronavirus jabs. A stroll in Pablo Picasso's footsteps in Montmartre, breathing in the sands of Provence, a humbling walk along D-Day beaches, these and all of France's other attractions will once again become easily accessible to most foreign tourists from Wednesday if they are vaccinated. The government announced last Friday removing the need for coronavirus tests for vaccinated Europeans, also allowing vaccinated tourists from most of the rest of the world. The relaxed rules will offer a well-needed boost for France's tourism sector. Holidaymakers in St. Ives on England's southwestern tip have been facing disruption as the seaside town gears up to host a gathering of the group of 7 leading industrialized nations. Tourists still thronged St. Ives' narrow lanes, enjoying local delicacies and heading to the beach. Some sightseeing boat companies reported several cancellations, forcing them to pause operations. The G7 summit, set to run between 11 to 13 June, will be one of the stops on U.S. President Joe Biden's first trip abroad. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson will use the meeting to urge world leaders to commit to vaccinating the global population against COVID-19 by the end of 2022. Member nations have also agreed to support a global minimum corporate tax of at least 15% to deter multinational companies from avoiding taxes by stashing profits in low-rate countries. When world leaders arrive in Cornwall later this week for the G7 meeting on Friday, they will find waiting in their rooms a hamper full of Cornish-made delicacies and gifts. The items include local biscuits, chocolates, pictures, candles, and bath salts, all designed by sisters Ainsley Fowler, Tegan Mackey, and Savi Mackey. The trio's lifestyle shop in St. Ives was chosen by the government to provide gifts for the delegates. World leaders looking to relax after long days of meetings will be enjoying lime and bergamot shower gel and rosehip oil body balm. The sisters, who set up their shop in February 2020, just before the first coronavirus lockdown, said the commission came out of the blue, but has provided a real boost for their business after a difficult year. Fowler said at first she thought it was a hoax when she received a telephone call from Downing Street. Apple kicked off its second annual all-virtual developer conference with a keynote that outlined new updates to its software for iPhones and other devices, but included no major product announcements. The latest renovations in Apple's $2 trillion empire come at a pivotal time for the Cupertino, California company. Apple is facing legal and regulatory threats to its control over its App Store, a so-called walled garden that produces substantial profits for the company. Apple CEO Tim Cook, Craig Federighi, Apple Senior Vice President of Software Engineering and other executives outlined updates to software for Apple's many devices, including its MacBooks, iMacs, iPhone, iPad, and Watch. Apple's new macOS software, dubbed Monterey, supports what Apple calls universal control, which lets people use one mouse and keyboard to control an iMac desktop computer, MacBook laptop, and iPad at the same time. Moving on to Turkey, a huge mass of marine mucilage that had bloomed in parts of Turkey's Sea of Marmara is being cleaned up. On Saturday, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan vowed to rescue the Marmara from an outbreak that is alarming marine biologists and environmentalists. Erdogan said untreated waste dumped into the Marmara Sea and climate change had caused the bloom. The outbreak of so-called sea snot, a thick, slimy substance made up of compounds released by marine organisms, has bloomed in Turkey's Marmara, as well as in the adjoining Black and Aegean Seas. And coming up next on World News, Pixar has a new animation out titled Luca.
Akhirnya Mas Ganjar sowan lah ke Mbak Puan. Saya bilang, Mbak Puan itu dipasangkannya harus sama Anies. Mau Prabowo juga nungsep pasti.
Di PDI itu sangat-sangat feudalistik. Bahwa ada yang namanya darah biru.
Tentu PDIP punya rasionalitas. Kenapa misalnya Ganjar dikunci.
Medcom.id, a part of Media Group News.
Kebutuhan pada laptop yang mumpuni sangat besar di era ini. Asus memperkenalkan laptop belajar baru bagi para pelajar.
BR1100 ini kita juga sematkan fitur yang bisa membantu sesi belajar online.
Pemerintah sendiri sebenarnya sudah mempunyai program untuk mendistribusikan laptop ya.
Siapa juga sih yang prediksi bahwa situasi kayak pandemi itu akan datang?
Asik belajar, Revolutionary Way to Educate, Kamis 10 Juni jam 9 pagi. Dipersembahkan oleh dengan tangan dinginnya, Janumiro Bunsal berhasil merehabilitasi lahan gambut sisa kebakaran, sehingga hutan di kawasan Kalimantan Tengah mampu terjaga serta terlindungi.
Hutan gambut Jumpun Pembelum ini kita kelola dan kami tertarik mengelola kawasan ini sejak tahun 1997.
Melihat Indonesia setelah hutan terbakar, Minggu 13 Juni jam 8:30 pagi.
Tiny home building is a big business.
The architecture is modern and the landscape is very minimalist.
So, you think you're an amazing cook.
My dream is to become a professional chef.
Mau tahu resep rahasia keluarga selebriti?
Ada rasa wanginya juga.
Mau jadi koki
When I was
andalan
about
di
20
rumah?
years old, I spent several months traveling through India, and we naturally would be eating Indian food. Cooking is just not a vocation, it's a calling.
Mau cari inspirasi interior?
1, 2, 3.
And if you want to live tiny,
Less house. More fun.
This is so fun.
So cute.
It's so amazing! Oh, that's so cool.
Atau ada niatan renovasi rumah?
All love to create our dream home. The dream becomes reality.
Wow. Dapetin semua inspirasinya di Mola Hour. Senin sampai Jumat, mulai jam 4 hingga jam 6 sore. Hanya di Makna Channel.
Karena corona masih ada, terus pakai masker. Jangan lupa cuci tangan pakai sabun.
Terus jaga jarak di mana saja.
Hindari juga kerumunan biar aman. Batasi kegiatan di luar rumah, jangan kendor protokol kesehatan. Vaksin untuk Indonesia.
Vaksin untuk Indonesia. Setiap Jumat jam 8 malam.
And in our top entertainment news for tonight, Raiders of the Lost Ark marks its 40th anniversary. Pixar's movie Luca wants kids to feel comfortable in their own skin, and Michael J. Fox turns 60 years old today. And that's wrapping up our show tonight. Thank you for watching World News on Metro Globe Network. Thank you for watching. Good night.
It's hard to believe it's been 40 years since Harrison Ford came swinging, shooting, and swashbuckling onto big screens all over the world in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. The beloved adventure film included iconic scenes like when Ford and co-star Karen Allen get stuck in the Well of Souls. Didn't know that was his name. An underground cavern filled with 6,000 live snakes. Allen says it took 2 weeks to film all the snake shots, and while she wasn't particularly fearful of snakes before shooting the scenes, she was wary of the biting snakes, like the pythons and cobras. Allen has starred in more than 50 films, and though playing Marion Ravenwood in Raiders was one of her first big roles, she knew it was special. To celebrate the 40th anniversary of the classic film, Paramount is releasing remastered versions of all 4 Indiana Jones films in a special 4K Ultra HD collection this week.
Wow, Luca.
Pixar's latest fantasy comedy is set in the 1950s Italian Riviera, where 2 young boys with a big secret become the best of friends. Their secret is that they are both sea monsters wandering on Earth among humans.
Trombetta. It's a human thing. I'm kind of an expert.
What does it mean?
Luca is voiced by Jacob Tremblay, whom you may remember from Room, who identifies the movie's important message, as people should feel comfortable in their own skin and feel proud of who they truly are. That's even hard for adults.
Well, I'm not pretending.
Luca's best friend is Alberto, played by Jack Dylan Grazer, whom you may remember from Shazam, who spoke about why the boys' relationship was special on screen.
So I pretty much just do
The coming-of-age comedy set in the seaside town of Porto Rosso is full of adventure, jokes, and the blossoming friendship of 2 young boys discovering the world together. Luca begins streaming exclusively on Disney Plus for all subscribers June 18th. Michael J. Fox, the ever-boyish star of Family Ties and the Back to the Future films, turned 60 years old Wednesday, June 9, 2021. The actor, who later earned further respect for his inspirational fight with Parkinson's disease, was born Michael Andrew Fox in 1961 in Edmonton, Canada. Fox found fame in the early 1980s with his performance as a young Republican being raised by former liberal hippies on sitcom Family Ties. Fox won 3 Emmys for lead role in a comedy for the show, later picking up a 4th and 5th Emmy for Spin City and his guest spot on Rescue Me. He made the jump to movies with comic fantasy Teen Wolf and the first of the classic Back to the Future trilogy, both released in 1985. It was the latter which made him a global star, as Fox recalled at the 25th anniversary screening of the movie in 2010. Fox has said he started to notice the first signs of Parkinson's disease while filming the romantic comedy Dog Hollywood in 1991. He has continued to act and in 2013 returned to full-time TV for 2 years with The Michael J. Fox Show. On the show, he played a newscaster and family man who returns to work following a diagnosis with Parkinson's disease. Other TV appearances include several episodes of The Good Wife and Designated Survivor, and guest spots on Curb Your Enthusiasm and The Good Fight. Fox has also sent his voice to hit children's films including the Homeward Bound and Stuart Little movies. He will be heard again in upcoming animation Back Home Again, which is currently in production.
I'm proud to stand here with you today in defense of values and principles that I admire and love so much about this country that I became a citizen about 20 years ago.
Metro TV miliki gudang multiguna at Pik 2 Bispark. Hadir dengan layout yang fungsional, bisa difungsikan sebagai gudang, kantor, dan rumah sekaligus. Hanya 3,5 menit menuju interchange, hanya 18 menit menuju Bandara Internasional Soekarno-Hatta. Miliki gudang multiguna ukuran 6x20 meter dengan harga spesial 2,5 miliar rupiah. Kunjungi show unit kami, hubungi 021 588 8000.
Kebutuhan pada laptop yang mumpuni sangat besar di era ini. Asus memperkenalkan laptop belajar baru bagi para pelajar.
BR 1100 ini kita juga sematkan fitur yang bisa membantu sesi belajar online.
Pemerintah sendiri sebenarnya sudah mempunyai program untuk mendistribusikan laptop ya.
Siapa juga sih yang prediksi bahwa situasi kayak pandemi itu akan datang?
Asik belajar, revolutionary way to educate. Kamis 10 Juni jam 9 pagi. Dipersembahkan oleh terbaru dari Metro TV mulai bulan Juni, The Legends, setiap Sabtu jam 7:30 malam.
Nggak benar jadi kalau seperti ini. Karena Nyadi bukan saya.
Saya ingat mama, sampai mama nangis sampai air matanya keluar.
Untuk Indonesia, dalam News Live, setiap Jumat jam 2:30 sore. The Journalist, setiap Senin jam 8 malam. Kick Andy Double Check. Metro TV, knowledge to elevate.
Tiny home building is a big business.
The architecture is modern and the landscape is very minimalist.
So, you think you're an amazing cook.
My dream is to become a professional chef.
Mau tahu resep rahasia keluarga selebriti?
Ada rasa wanginya juga.
Mau jadi koki andalan di rumah?
When I was about 20 years old, I spent several months traveling through India. We naturally would be eating Indian food. Cooking is just not a vocation, it's a calling.
Mau cari inspirasi interior?
1, 2, 3.
And if you want to live tiny,
Less house, more fun.
This is so fun.
It's so cute.
It's so amazing. Oh, that's so cool.
Atau ada niatan renovasi rumah?
All love to create our dream home. The dream becomes reality.
Wow. Dapetin semua inspirasinya di Mola Awan. Senin sampai Jumat, mulai jam 4 hingga jam 6 sore. Hanya di Makna Channel.
Saksikan live streaming Metro TV dan dapatkan informasi secara lengkap dengan video berkualitas high definition di kanal metrotvnews.com dan medcom.id.
Semua ujian pasti ada ujungnya. Vaksin untuk Indonesia.
Setiap Jumat jam 8 malam.
Indonesia tanah air beta, pusaka abadi nan jaya. Indonesia sejak dulu kala tetap dipuja-puja bangsa. sana tempat lahir beta, dibuai dibesarkan bunda, tempat berlindung di hari tua sampai akhir menutup mata, tempat berlindung di hari tua sampai akhir menutup mata.
Metro TV, a part of Media Group News.
Anda menyaksikan headline news, saya Iqbal Himawan. Pemirsa, Presiden Amerika Serikat Joe Biden melakukan kunjungan pertamanya ke luar negeri. Biden terbang ke Inggris untuk menghadiri pertemuan KTT G7. Turun dari helikopter Marine One di Bandar Udara Militer di Maryland, Amerika Serikat, Presiden Joe Biden dan Ibu Negara akan terbang ke Inggris. Ini adalah kunjungan pertama Joe Biden ke luar negeri sebagai Presiden Amerika Serikat. Biden terbang ke Inggris untuk menghadiri pertemuan KTT G7, forum pertemuan negara-negara yang berekonomi maju. Sebelum naik pesawat Air Force One, Biden mengatakan kepada wartawan bahwa ia akan membahas soal isu Rusia dan Tiongkok di hadapan pemimpin negara anggota G7. Sementara itu, pengamanan di sekitar tempat pertemuan KTT G7 di Cornwall dan tempat para pemimpin negara tinggal selama pertemuan semakin diperketat. Ratusan aparat kepolisian dikerahkan di sekitar lokasi acara. Polisi juga menggelar pemeriksaan ketat. Warga yang tinggal di sekitar lokasi pertemuan dilarang mendekat. Satu persatu gorong-gorong di jalan diperiksa oleh aparat kepolisian. KTT G7 akan digelar pada tanggal 11 hingga 13 Juni. Pertemuan akan dihadiri oleh pemimpin Amerika Serikat, Inggris, Prancis, Jerman, Italia, Jepang, dan Kanada. Beralih ke Timur Tengah, pemirsa, kebakaran lahan terjadi di kawasan yang menghubungkan Yerusalem dengan Tel Aviv. Asap terlihat membumbung tinggi dari kawasan lahan di luar Yerusalem. Kebakaran terjadi di kawasan yang menghubungkan Yerusalem dengan Tel Aviv. Jalan tol dan kawasan di sekitar lokasi kebakaran ditutup. Pesawat pemadam kebakaran dikerahkan untuk memadamkan api. Belum ada laporan korban jiwa akibat kebakaran lahan ini. Ikuti berita terkini melalui metrotvnews.com dan headlines berikutnya akan hadir 1 jam mendatang.
Untuk meningkatkan kualitas siaran, Metro TV migrasi ke satelit merah putih Telkom 4 dengan parameter: pastikan tetap terinformasi dengan tayangan lebih jernih bersama Metro TV.
Media Group News mempersembahkan televisi digital terestrial pertama dengan jangkauan nasional, Magna Channel. Temukan di saluran TV digital Anda.
Hello and good evening. We welcome you to Asia Prime on Metro Globe Network, coming to you live from Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm Ralph Tampubolon.
And I'm Fifi Aleda Yahya. In the next 60 minutes, we have prime stories from all over the world.
And here are tonight's top stories.
Indonesia starts offline schoolings with extra health cautions.
Scientists are debating a controversial decision by an American drug regulator to license an Alzheimer's treatment, the first in 20 years.
French President Emmanuel Macron has been slapped in the face on an official visit to the southeast of France.
We begin tonight's edition from Afghanistan, where gunmen killed 10 people and wounded 14 others in an attack on the Halo Trust demining organization Tuesday. The government blames the Taliban responsible for this latest attack.
The attack occurred in the group's camp in the Baghlan Markazi district of northern Baghlan province. Afghan Interior Ministry spokesman Tariq Aryan blames the Taliban, while the Taliban immediately denied any connection to the attack in response to an AP inquiry. The UN has warned that the use of improvised explosive devices in the country is increasing as conflicts become more urbanized and armed groups proliferate.
Afghanistan is one of several countries where large swaths of its territory are littered with bombs and landmines. The Halo Trust is one of several demining organizations in Afghanistan that clear unexploded mines.
A bus carrying migrant workers hit a delivery van on a highway in northern India, killing at least 17 people and injuring 18.
The bus overturned after colliding with a van coming from the opposite direction Tuesday night near Kanpur, a city 80 kilometers southwest of Lucknow, the Uttar Pradesh state capital. Migrant workers were heading to Ahmedabad, a city in western Gujarat state, to resume work following industries reopening after the lifting of the lockdown restrictions. The van was transporting workers home from a biscuit manufacturing unit, and most of the dead were amongst them. More than 110,000 people are killed every year in road accidents across India.
Demonstrators clashed with police outside a soccer stadium in Colombia, where the national team was playing Argentina in a World Cup qualifier.
The protesters threw rocks and petrol bombs at the police, who responded with a tear gas and water cannon. The demonstrators were angered that the match was taking place, saying it showed indifference to the nationwide anti-government protests that have been going on for the past month. During the course of the last 4 weeks, 58 people have been killed and hundreds of others have alleged police beatings, arbitrary detentions, and sexual abuse. Tuesday's match ended in a 2-2 draw.
A tornado that touched down in a largely rural area of northern Colorado on Monday damaged at least one home and brought down power poles and lines.
No injuries were reported from the twister in Weld County, where there are reports of livestock being lost. A county spokesperson says one home was damaged in a fire caused by a downed power line. The National Weather Service is conducting a survey of the damage to determine the intensity of the twister. It says it appears to have touched down north of Firestone before moving to near Platteville for dissipating.
French President Emmanuel Macron has been slapped in the face on an official visit to the southeast of France. The man reportedly shouted "Down with Macronism" as he slapped the president.
In a video circulating on social media, Macron is seen walking up to a barrier on a trip to Tain-l'Hermitage outside the city of Valence. A man in a green t-shirt slaps Macron in the face before officers quickly move in and pulled him away. Macron briefly returned to the barrier following the incident and once again interacted with the crowd. French media reported that 2 men have been arrested following the incident. As yet, the identity and motives of the men are unclear.
A family finally reunited after 6 years. It was a fairy tale ending to a complicated story, one that began in Honduras and with an unhappy relationship, according to Valdez, a single mom looking for a better life in the U.S.
At Texas Austin Bergstrom International Airport, tearfully embracing the little girl she left behind, happening only because she had glimpsed a televised photo of Emily, part of an Associated Press story on young people crossing the Mexican border alone. 6 years had passed since Glenda Valdez kissed her toddler goodbye and left for the United States. 6 years since she held Emily in her arms. Emily's father was absent and did not provide for them. When Valdez emigrated in pursuit of a better life, the girl was left in the custody of Valdez's mother, but Emily's father took her back. Emily told her that her father had decided to send her away without telling her where. He placed her in the care of an adult who over several weeks helped her journey to the U.S.-Mexico border. Around midnight, Border Patrol agents encountered Emily in La Joya, Texas. She had been walking in the brush for 6 hours with a group of strangers and had lost a shoe in the mud. And stay with us here on Asia Prime. More stories coming your way, including the group of 7 rich countries, G7. We'll try to show the world at a summit that the West can still act in concert to tackle major crisis by donating hundreds of millions of COVID vaccines to poor countries.
Miliki gudang multiguna at Peak 2 Bispark. Hadir dengan layout yang fungsional. Bisa difungsikan sebagai gudang, kantor, dan rumah sekaligus. Hanya 3,5 menit menuju interchange. Hanya 18 menit menuju Bandara Internasional Soekarno-Hatta. Miliki gudang multiguna ukuran 6x20 meter dengan harga spesial 2,5 miliar rupiah. Kunjungi show unit kami. Hubungi 021 588 8000.
Banyak orang belum memeriksakan kondisi kesehatannya secara rutin.
Juga banyak orang yang kemudian mengkhawatirkan masalah biaya sehingga medical check-up pun urung dilakukan.
Dr. Laser bekerja sama dengan Rumah Sakit Mitra Keluarga memberikan layanan medical check-up kepada Anda, pemirsa Metro TV.
Manfaatkan kesempatan medical check-up screening jantung dan juga screening stroke, diskon hingga 50%.
Dan pengumuman kode voucher diskon medical check-up akan ada di akhir acara. Go Healthy, cara tepat, hidup sehat.
Dalam era digital saat ini, semua lini kehidupan dituntut untuk menggunakan produk digital.
Millions of Indonesians get focused on the same thing.
Keuangan syariah itu bisa lebih masuk ke dalam pasar yang sebelumnya belum terjangkau. Kita melakukan edukasi ke seluruh ekosistem syariah yang ada saat ini. Syariah itu tidak harus lebih less dibandingkan yang regularnya gitu ya.
Syariah Economic Talk with Gunawan Yasni, digitalisasi industri keuangan syariah. Besok jam 8 malam. Nikmati Metro TV HD di saluran digital Anda.
Ayo semuanya, dukung migrasi TV digital. Bersih gambarnya, jernih suaranya, dan canggih teknologinya.
Bumi Papua yang memberikan energi kepada saudara-saudaranya dari seluruh persada lain. Saya katakan ini karena inilah merupakan suatu kenyataan yang sesungguhnya. Matahari terbit dari ufuk, dan timur itu adalah tiada artinya semuanya tanpa Papua.
The group of 7 rich countries, G7, will try to show the world at a summit that the West can still act in concert to tackle major crises by donating hundreds of millions of COVID-19 vaccines to poor countries. They also agreed to deal on a minimum corporate tax rate. Member nations have also agreed to support a global minimum corporate tax of at least 15% to deter multinational companies from avoiding taxes by stashing profits in low-rate countries. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson will use the G7 meeting to urge world leaders to commit to vaccinating the global population by the end of 2022. A summit meeting of the group of 7 wealthy democracies will be held this week between 11th to 13th of June. Leaders including U.S. President Joe Biden to attend the meeting.
Still on the G7, Australia warns global leaders that the risk of conflict involving China is rising as the world faces a period of uncertainty. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison will be a guest at the G7 summit alongside leaders of global powerhouses, including Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, and the US. The summit will be held this week.
Australia's prosperity rests squarely on maintaining our position as an outward-looking, open trading and economy. At the G7, we will be working with others to buttress the role of the World Trade Organisation and to modernise its rulebook where necessary. A well-functioning WTO that sets clear rules, arbitrates disputes objectively and efficiently penalises bad behaviour when it occurs. This can be one of the most powerful tools the international community has to counter economic coercion. Now, in my discussions with many leaders, I've taken great encouragement from the support shown for Australia's preparedness to withstand economic coercion in recent times. It has galvanised. The most practical way to address economic coercion is the restoration of the global trading body's binding dispute settlement system. Where there are no consequences for coercive behaviour, there is little incentive for restraint. The defining issue, I believe, for global and regional security is about the stability that we're currently seeking to maximise. That regional stability and security upon which our security, our prosperity, our way of life depends. And that is occurring at a time of escalating great power strategic competition. Rapid military modernisation, tension over territorial claims, heightened economic coercion, undermining of international law, including the law of the sea, through to enhanced disinformation, foreign interference, cyber threats, enabled by new and emerging technologies. There's a lot to talk about in Cornwall.
The Indonesian government has a long-term plan to draft an omnibus law pertaining digital security. Indonesia's Chief Security Minister Mahfud MD said on Tuesday the country needs to build concerning the increasing trend of digital crimes based on the National Intelligence Agency's explanations. The further law will cover fields that have not regulated in existing law on electronic transactions, Mahfud said. The conclusion on the need of new act was one of results coming from an assessment team set in February this year to observe the electronic transactions law.
Terkait dengan perkembangan digital di seluruh dunia sekarang ini, kita itu sekarang akan menyiapkan satu rancangan undang-undang yang mencakup banyak hal yang belum dicakup oleh 6 hal tadi, yang hanya menyangkut ujaran kebencian, bohong, judi, kesusilaan, penghinaan, fitnah. Di luar itu kan masih banyak. Perlindungan data konsumen, perlindungan data pribadi, transaksi elektronik. Ini meskipun namanya undang-undang informasi dan transaksi elektronik, ini kan tidak ada transaksi dalam arti uang. Ini transaksi berita ya di situ. Nah, nanti itu akan diatur semua melalui satu undang-undang yang lebih komprehensif. Kita memutuskan untuk membuat semacam omnibus law di bidang elektronik agar kita mempunyai kekuatan pertahanan di dunia digital.
New students' enrollment across Indonesia, including the capital Jakarta, begins this week. Parents are coming into local registration centers at Vocational High School SMK 27 Jakarta, where most of them are complaining about data input errors. Umaira Balkis and Irfan Januari report.
One of the new students enrollment or PPDB service posts in DKI Jakarta is here at SMK 27 Jakarta. Until the third day of PPDB registration for the achievement path, more than 90 PPDB participants or their representatives came to complain about problems or obstacles they faced, such as forgetting password, incorrect data input, and population problems. 15 officers from the Education Office and the Population and Civil Registry Office from Pemprov DKI Jakarta are on standby at this service post to help find the solutions. The PPDB service post at SMK 27 Jakarta is open every Monday to Friday, except for national holidays, from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. Meanwhile, the PPDB registration for the achievement path will still last until June 11, 2021. From Jakarta, Humaira Balkis, Irfan Januari, Metro TV.
Indonesia starts offline schoolings with extra health cautions. 25% of the total students in a class are allowed to attend face-to-face schooling each meeting. Sosa Hutapea and Awaludin have more.
Indonesian government decided to do school reopening as soon as possible during this pandemic time. This day, 226 schools in Jakarta's area allowed to join in class learning simulation until June 26. The government has grown more confident in suggesting school reopening now that the inoculation of all teachers is underway and is expected to be complete before the new school year begins. The government has issued a guideline for schools that wish to resume in-person learning. First, students will attend classes in rotation, as the occupancy of a classroom must be limited to half of its capacity to allow for physical distancing. And it is 25% students, 2 times a week with duration only 2 hours each day. Schools will be given the freedom to arrange face-to-face learning and should keep the option of online learning open. The second, parents' consent is imperative. Parents have the right to keep their children from attending in-person classes for safety reasons. And the last is the health protocol must be enforced strictly in schools during in-class learning. Everybody has to wear masks, maintain a physical distance from others, and sign an attendance list first. From Jakarta, Sosa Hutapea, Awaludin, Metro TV.
Dozens of Indonesian university students grouped into an anti-nuclear Fukushima held a peaceful rally in front of the Japanese embassy in Jakarta Tuesday, urging the Japanese government to stop its plan on nuclear disposal to the Pacific Ocean. Wearing crustacean costumes, the protesters also conducted similar rallies in front of the Marine Affairs and Fisheries Ministry in central Jakarta, calling the government of Indonesia to pay attention on that issue. The crowd believes nuclear disposal to the Pacific Ocean will give negative impacts for marine ecosystems, which in the end fishermen earn from getting marine resources, including Indonesian fishers. The rally was conducted to commemorate World Oceans Day 2021.
Dan tidak menginginkan limbah pabrik nuklir dibuang ke wilayah.
Asia-Pacific markets were mixed on Wednesday trades as investors reacted to the release of China's inflation data. Meanwhile, IDX Composite is predicted to continue the gain.
Shares in Asia-Pacific were mixed on Wednesday trade as investors reacted to the release of Chinese inflation data. China's inflation rate in May rose 1.3% from a year ago. This was lower than the expectation of 1.6% rise. China's producer price index for May jumped 9% from a year ago. This was against the expectation for an 8.5% increase. Meanwhile, the World Bank on Tuesday upgraded its growth forecast, with the global economy now expected to grow 5.6% in 2021. That compared against an earlier forecast in January for a 4% global economic expansion in 2021. However, investors globally will still be cautious due to the inflation risk. Investors want to see how much downside in equities will occur once the Fed taper tantrum begins. Jakarta Stock Exchange Composite Index were mostly higher today, and some analysts predicted IDX Composite will continue to gain on tomorrow's trade at the range of 6,000 to 6,130. From Jakarta, I'm Mercy Wijaya reporting for Asia Prime Metro Globe Network.
Apple kicked off its second annual all-virtual developer conference with a keynote that outlined new updates to its software for iPhones and other devices. We have more on this on Asia Prime. Stay with us on Metro Globe Network.
Kenapa sih kita harus berinvestasi di PIK 2? Ada 3 alasan utama. Yang pertama, lokasi PIK 2. Alasan kedua, setiap orang yang membeli PIK 2 dianggap sebagai pemegang saham. Membeli produk PIK 2 memang selalu untung karena harga perdana PIK 2 50% di bawah harga market. Alasan yang ketiga, fasilitas. Di mana fasilitas yang tersedia di PIK 2 jauh lebih banyak dari real estate manapun juga.
Banyak orang belum memeriksakan kondisi kesehatannya secara rutin.
Juga banyak orang yang kemudian mengkhawatirkan masalah biaya sehingga medical check-up pun urung dilakukan.
Dr. Laser bekerja sama dengan Rumah Sakit Mitra Keluarga memberikan layanan medical check-up kepada Anda pemirsa Metro TV.
Manfaatkan kesempatan medical check-up screening jantung dan juga screening stroke diskon hingga 50%.
Dan pengumuman kode voucher diskon medical check-up akan ada di akhir acara. Go Healthy, cara tepat hidup sehat.
Dengan tangan dinginnya, Janumiro Bunsal berhasil merehabilitasi lahan gambut sisa kebakaran, sehingga hutan di kawasan Kalimantan Tengah mampu terjaga serta terlindungi.
Hutan gambut Jumpun Pembelum ini kita kelola dan kami tertarik mengelola kawasan ini sejak tahun 1997.
Melihat Indonesia setelah hutan terbakar, Minggu 13 Juni jam 8:30 pagi.
Lifestyle, fashion, kuliner, traveling, arsitektur, segala ide kreatif serta hal-hal menarik dari berbagai daerah di Eropa kami hadirkan di ruang keluarga Anda. Euromax, setiap Senin jam 7:30 malam.
In Temanggung, Central Java, the koi fish business is on the rise.
The fountains at the Peterhof Palace in Russia attract visitors with their stunning water displays.
UNICEF supporters who are world celebrities call for G7 leaders to share vaccines.
In Temanggung, Central Java, the koi fish business is on the rise, and the profit is said to be able to reach up to...
Banten uses ice cream sticks to make a replica of a ship. The final product not only contributes to saving the environment by recycling, but also has economic value.
Bambang Irawan works as administrative staff in a senior high school. When the COVID-19 pandemic began, Bambang, who lives in Silentrang village in Cilegon, Banten, had to stop working temporarily and spend more time at home. With his wife, he then tried to make handicraft from used ice cream sticks. They only use simple tools such as glue, a cutter, and pieces of wood. Two of his best-selling products are replicas of ships from the movie Titanic and Pirates of the Caribbean. Each replica has different characteristics and challenges. For example, it takes 2 weeks to make the Titanic replica with its meticulous funnels. He uses social media such as Facebook to market his product, which he sells for 100 to 600,000 rupiah. From Cilegon, Banten, Sefrina Putra for Metro Globe Network.
Scientists are debating a controversial decision by the American drug regulator to license treatment for Alzheimer's, the first in 20 years. The FDA's approval disregards warnings from its own independent advisors that the treatment has not been shown to slow the brain-wasting disease, but now other regulatory authorities around the world may be re-examining the disputed research behind the drug. This is aducanumab, called Aduhelm by Biogen, the company which produces it. According to the FDA, it granted approval to the drug from Biogen based on results that seemed, quote, reasonably likely, unquote, to benefit Alzheimer's patients. The decision could impact millions of elder Americans and their families, certain to spark disagreements among physicians, medical researchers, and patient groups. Alzheimer's is the most common of dementias.
Apple kicked off its second annual all-virtual developer conference with a keynote that outlined new updates to its software for iPhones and other devices, but included no major product announcements. The latest renovations in Apple's $2 trillion empire come at a pivotal time for the Cupertino, California company. Apple is facing legal and regulatory threats to its control over its App Store, a so-called walled garden that produces substantial profits for the company. Apple CEO Tim Cook, along with Craig Federighi, Apple's Senior Vice President of Software Engineering, and other executives outline updates to software for Apple's many devices, including its MacBooks, iMacs, iPhone, iPad, and Watch. Apple's new software, dubbed Monterey, supports what Apple calls universal control, which lets people use one mouse and keyboard to control an iMac desktop computer, MacBook laptop, and iPad at the same time.
Still on the subject of communications and encryptions, a global sting involving an encrypted communications platform developed by the FBI sparked raids and arrests around the world, delivering an unprecedented blow to crime gangs, according to law enforcement authorities. Authorities in Australia and New Zealand say they had dealt a huge blow to organized crime after hundreds of criminals were tricked into using the messaging app. The authorities say they arrested 224 people and seized more than 4 tons of drugs and $35 million in an ongoing operation that dates back 3 years. Operation Trojan Shield involved police swoops in 16 nations. More than 800 suspects were arrested, and more than 32 tons of drugs, cocaine, cannabis, amphetamines, and methamphetamines were seized, along with 250 firearms, 55 luxury cars, and more than $148 million in cash, plus also cryptocurrencies.
Georgian tourism is struggling to recover, with its natural landscape cut off to all but a few international tourists. Stay with us on Asia Prime.
Kenapa sih kita harus berinvestasi di PIK 2? Ada 3 alasan utama. Yang pertama, lokasi PIK 2. Alasan kedua, setiap orang yang membeli PIK 2 dianggap sebagai pemegang saham. Membeli produk PIK 2 memang selalu untung karena harga perdana PIK 2 50% di bawah harga market. Alasan yang ketiga, fasilitas. Di mana fasilitas yang tersedia di PIK 2 jauh lebih banyak dari real estate manapun juga.
Saat ini obat ampuh untuk melawan virus corona belum ada.
Saya ingin agar protokol kesehatan, perubahan perilaku di masyarakat menjadi perhatian kita. Kita fokus kampanye pakai masker.
Semua wajib pakai masker di media group. Disiplin memakai masker tidak hanya untuk melindungi diri dan sesama, tapi juga untuk menjaga Indonesia kita.
Pandemi bikin kita susah. Semua mencoba bertahan hidup dengan hati yang gelisah. Kita sampai di hari ini
karena kita saling melindungi.
Ada yang berjuang paling depan. Ada yang setia melindungi. Harapan-harapan itu sekarang nyata.
Vaksin untuk Indonesia bersama SLAM. Setiap Jumat jam 8 malam. Tasty and Healthy pekan ini mengajak Anda untuk mencicipi cita rasa baru hasil perpaduan beberapa unsur tradisi kuliner Tiongkok yang berbeda. Seperti apa inovasi kuliner ini membuat sensasi di lidah pencicipnya?
所以，观众朋友们，我们今天的健康美学呢就要到这结束了。不要忘记收看我们每周6早上7点的健康美食。我们下周见。
Tasty and Healthy, kuliner fusi Tiongkok. Sabtu 12 Juni jam 7 pagi.
You're watching Asia Prime. Georgian tourism is struggling to recover with its vast natural landscapes cut off to all but a few international tourists.
National monuments like the Okatsi Canyon have just opened, but COVID infections in the country remain high, and just a fraction of the population has been vaccinated.
It's a view of nature, which is jaw-dropping and inspiring for tourists who manage to get up here. This 20 meters platform hangs at one of the highest points of the Okatsi Canyon. It's reward for tourists who walk hours to get here. It's usually packed, but at the moment, the few visitors here can enjoy its beauty in relative place. Among them is Dainara Seishambueva, who is visiting from Kazakhstan.
Наконец-то открылись границы, и мы прилетели с Казахстана сразу же, как узнали эту новость. Мы прилетели, сегодня уже второй день. Очень был насыщенный день. Сейчас мы находимся на каньоне. На самом деле захватывает дух. Это через такую силу воли, через страх перешли. Помимо того, что мы увидели всю эту красоту, мы еще и немножко спортом занялись. Это было нереально. Мы думали, что мы не сможем дойти до конца, но ради такого вида стоило проделать такой путь.
The 6-kilometer trek begins with paved steps which takes visitors through historical forests through to Hanging Cliff Trail 800 meters long. The Okatsi Canyon is a natural monument in western Georgia. It's one of the attractions that has suffered from restrictions imposed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are waterfalls, lakes, and hot summer days. Visitors can swim in mountain spring or just relax in the picnic area. Before COVID-19 shut borders, the canyon attracted thousands of people each day. Okatsi Canyon was closed in October 2020 and only reopened on 28 May 2021. Tourism has been one of Georgia's most rapidly growing industries in 2019. The direct contribution of tourism to Georgia's GDP was 9%. It had been expected to grow to 10.5% by 2028, but the number of tourists dropped sharply.
I got your different.
The fountains at the Peterhof Palace in Russia attract visitors with their stunning water displays. The Grand Cascade and Samson fountains began operating in July 17th to 21st, so this year marks their 300th anniversary.
The fountains at the Peterhof Palace, also known as Russia's Versailles, attracts visitors from around the globe with their dazzling water displays. The Grand Cascade consists of 255 sculptures and 64 fountains with 138 water jets pumping skyward. One of the spotlights of the whole composition is the well-known statue of Samson tearing the lion's mouth. The system of water pipelines funnels water to the fountains of the Grand Cascade and Peterhof fountains. One of the main distinguishing features is that the fountains, unlike the fountains of Versailles, work without pumps.
Chinese tech giant Baidu has rolled out its paid driverless taxi service in Beijing, making it the first company to commercialize autonomous driving operations in China.
Since the beginning of May, up to 10 Apollo Go driverless taxis has been running in an area of about 3 square kilometers to pick up and drop off passengers in 8 stops in Shoukang Parks in western Beijing. Each ride costs 30 yuan or $4 and is open to passengers ages 18 to 60. The taxis are an installation of an autonomous driving system on Hongqi, a domestically produced luxury brand. By clicking Start a Journey on an in-car display screen, passengers are asked to fasten seat belts and get ready to hit the road. Unlike previous Baitu autonomous driving demonstrations in Beijing, this is the first time there is no safety driver sitting behind the steering wheel. Instead, a safety member is sitting in the front passenger seat in case of emergencies.
它现在这种驾驶呢，就是各种传感器嘛，这个传感器包括摄像头，包括这个就是说毫米波雷达，也包括超声波雷达，那么还有激光雷达，啊，就是说各种传感器，然后进行一种融合，然后来达成。那么像百度这种呢，也是就融合了这个摄像头跟那个激光雷达的。那么像特斯拉，它呢就是马斯克一直讲，他说他不用激光雷达，他就靠视觉融合。靠摄像头就能把这些事情给解决了，啊，所以呢，这个目前的就是这种研发公司做的这种自动驾驶，更多的全部是单车智能。
Passengers can hail a ride using the Apollo Go app on smartphones. When the taxi arrives at the pickup stop, passengers need to scan a QR code to verify their identity before entering the taxi. Chang Yang, a postgraduate student majoring automation, experienced the 2-minute ride at an average speed of 30 km per hour and is concerned about whether the technology will function well in Beijing.
它这个转弯的时候速度有点快，可能还是有一点声音。对，我感觉它那个好像是控制速度在30公里每小时呢，可能转弯的时候可能要再调一下，调得慢一点吧，我觉得。
Baitu, known for its search engine, has been testing autonomous driving on the open road since last year. Its Apollo Go robotaxi service has carried more than 200,000 passengers in the 3 cities across China and aims to expand to 30 cities in the next 3 years.
Driverless, would you take it?
Maybe, if you're next to me.
Moving on to Russia, who plans to open its Northern Sea Passage, also known as the Northern Sea Route, for year-round navigation.
It follows the blockage of the Suez Canal earlier this year and increasing ice melting in the Arctic. In March this year, one of the world's major maritime routes, the Suez Canal, was blocked for almost a week by a stranded container ship. 2 weeks later, in April, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that the Northern Sea Route, the maritime route connecting Europe with Eastern Asia through the Arctic, would soon become open for year-round navigation. The route, which passes through 6 seas of the Arctic Ocean alongside Russia's Arctic coast, is usually only open from June till November.
And around November, the ice would usually get thicker, and even powerful nuclear icebreakers can only float at the speed of several kilometers per hour. However, as global warming continues to hit the Arctic, the amount of ice is decreased by 40% compared to the 1980s. This according to a report published by the UN Environment Program 2 years ago.
Spanish beaches are open for business again as the country prepares to welcome back international visitors. The tourist hotspot relaxed restrictions after its 2-week infection rate dropped below 130 new cases per 100,000 people, down from a record of 900 at the end of January.
Groups of travelers are once again dragging their suitcases through Malaga airport, looking forward to a break on Malaga's Costa del Sol. Spain is one of the world's most popular vacation destinations, but last year, like many others around the globe, it suffered economic devastation due to limits on travel and gatherings brought on by the pandemic. Tourism accounted for 12% of Spanish GDP in 2019, with 83.7 million visitors, according to Spanish government. The country is hoping to attract British and German travelers who are highly sought after because they're seen as high spenders. In 2019, Britain sent 18 million people to Spain, the most of any country. Meanwhile, Spain remains an amber-listed country in the UK, with quarantine and multiple COVID-19 tests required for those flying from Spain back into the country.
A global sting involving an encrypted communications platform developed by the FBI sparked raids and arrests around the world, delivering an unprecedented blow to crime gangs, law enforcement authorities.
Authorities in Australia and New Zealand say they had dealt a huge blow to organized crime after hundreds of criminals were tricked into using the messaging app. Australian authorities say They arrested 224 people and seized more than 4 tons of drugs and $35 million in an ongoing operation that dates back 3 years. Operation Trojan Shield involved police swoops in 16 nations. More than 800 suspects were arrested, and more than 32 tons of drugs such as cocaine, cannabis, amphetamines, and methamphetamines were seized, along with 250 firearms, 55 luxury cars, and more than $148 million in cash, along with cryptocurrencies as well.
The Duchess of Sussex, the actress formerly known as Meghan Markle, also released a book. Ralph, are you excited?
I am. Let's find out more. Stay with us on Asia Prime.
Peran keluarga dalam upaya memberikan dukungan ke salah satu keluarga yang terserang stroke sangatlah dibutuhkan agar harapan untuk kembali pulih dapat diraih.
Saya Hendra, usia 69 tahun, terkena serangan stroke pada tahun 2007.
Sekarang puji Tuhan sudah mengalami perbaikan berkat teknologi laser.
Lalu bagaimana teknologi laser dapat cegah dan atasi stroke? Simak Go Healthy, manfaat teknologi laser bagi penyintas stroke. Kamis, 10 Juni, jam 6:30 pagi.
Karena corona masih ada, terus pakai masker. Jangan lupa cuci tangan pakai sabun.
Terus jaga jarak di mana saja.
Hindari juga kerumunan biar aman. Batasi kegiatan di luar rumah, jangan kendor protokol kesehatan. Vaksin untuk Indonesia.
Buka pikiran Anda, perluas wawasan, dapatkan sudut pandang baru dari sosok-sosok inspiratif.
Unlock with Billy Boone, setiap Sabtu di pekan terakhir setiap bulannya.
Cara akses Magna Channel di TV digital Anda. Caranya, pilih menu atau setting. Kemudian, pilih saluran dan lakukan pencarian otomatis. Tunggu beberapa saat, Magna Channel akan muncul di daftar saluran TV digital Anda. Dan pilih Magna Channel. Selamat menonton Magna Channel, TV digital terestrial pertama dengan jangkauan nasional.
Warnai hari-hari Anda dengan nuansa tayangan kami yang inspiratif,
there is something beautiful in difference,
atraktif,
orders ready,
penuh ide-ide kreatif,
oh that's so cool,
dan yang bakal bikin suasana makin rileks. Semuanya bisa dinikmati di Magna Channel melalui TV digital Anda.
Indonesia memiliki potensi ekonomi syariah terlengkap. Bahkan kita diprediksi menjadi kiblat keuangan dan ekonomi syariah dunia. Seperti apa ekonomi syariah Indonesia? Bagaimana kita bisa mengubah dunia lewat ekonomi syariah? Saya akan membahasnya bersama narasumber terkemuka hanya dalam Syariah Economic Talk bersama saya Gunawan Yasni setiap Kamis jam 8 malam di Metro TV.
Well, it's not an easy feat spotting a fluffy white dog in the middle of an icy wilderness.
But thanks to an eagle-eyed crew on board a Russian boat, a runaway pup was not only found but rescued after it wandered onto the ice of the Gulf of Ob in northwest Siberia. Aika, a puppy from a nearby village, became lost a week ago after running away from home, the pup's owner said. The crew of the icebreaker Alexander Zanikov managed to locate the stumbling canine and lured the dog on the boat with the help of a ladder and a few snacks. At the moment of its rescue, the dog was starved and very weak, the crew recalled. A few hours after the rescue, Aika was taken back home by hovercraft and reunited with its owners. Aww.
On to Pakistan. Well, people took to the streets of Pakistan's capital on the weekend to celebrate World Environment Day, raising awareness for the protection of the planet.
Vehicles decorated with trees, dustbins, and statues covered with plastic bags drove through Islamabad. Activists, the general public, and even traffic police joined in, holding up banners and signs. Prime Minister Imran Khan called on developed countries to generously provide financial support to climate vulnerable developing countries, including Pakistan, to cope with the devastating consequences of climate change. Pakistan is the global host for World Environment Day, with this year's message aiming to highlight the importance of the ecosystem restoration theme.
Well, besides giving birth to a second child, the Duchess of Sussex, or the actress formerly known as Meghan Markle, has also released a children's book.
Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, released her first children's book Tuesday, June 8, 2021, one rooted in the relationship between Prince Harry and their son, Archie. The bench is illustrated by award-winning illustrator Christian Robinson, and Meghan narrates the audiobook edition. The book features a diverse group of fathers and sons and moments they share. The book grew out of a poem Meghan wrote for Harry for their first Father's Day after Archie's birth, according to a statement announcing the release. The book is one of several projects that Meghan and Harry have announced since stepping away from royal duties in early 2020. The Duchess, the actor formerly known as Meghan Markle, narrated the Disney nature film Elephant, and the couple has a Netflix deal. Their first project for the streaming service focuses on the Invictus Games, a competition for sick and injured military personnel and veterans that was championed by Harry. Robinson wrote and illustrated Another and You Matter, and won Caldecott and Coretta Scott King honors for his art in Last Stop on Market Street. The birth of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's second child, Lilibet Lily Diana Mountbatten Windsor, on Friday, was announced Sunday. The bench was released June 8 through Random House Children's Books.
Oh, good for her.
Good for her.
And good for the children as well.
The Foo Fighters are to reopen Madison Square Garden for concerts. E-releases clips of series finale of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and UNICEF supporters who are world celebrities calls for G7 leaders to share vaccines.
Here is today's top entertainment stories.
New York City's Madison Square Garden is ready to rock and roll again. MSG Entertainment announced Tuesday, June 8, 2021, that Foo Fighters will help reopen the famed arena with a concert on June 20, the venue's first show in more than 460 days. MSG says the concert for vaccinated audience members will be its first at 100% capacity. Tickets go on sale Friday. Foo Fighters, who first headlined the Garden in 2008, last played at the venue in 2018. Keeping Up with the Kardashians will air its series finale on Thursday, June 10. The show became a pop culture sensation